item on the agenda, please fill out a request to speak card and turn it into the city clerk. The cards are located near the doors at the back of the chambers. And I have 2 cards here for consent items. Any other cards, public speakers? Great. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Oh, I do have another one. Okay, June Engel, thank you. Is that for public comment? Great, okay. Okay, that's fine. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spriggs.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember West.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bragg.
Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Here. And now, please rise as Claire Dermody and Bridget Dermody, 2 of the 11 grandchildren of former Public Works Director, we call you Public Works Director Emeritus, Hank Levine, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, with consent of the council, I'd like to ask that we pull item 2.5, which has to do with the brigantine use of the sidewalk.
Any feeling on that?
Is that your motion? And I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Yep. I hope I'll be around because I have to catch a flight at 8:30.
You might not, because we're going to put it at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, we have to put it to the end, but I think the purpose of pulling it is so that there's an opportunity to support what's going on there and to eliminate the rumors about what's going in there. I mean, almost everybody knows now that it's brigantine, but it's never come before the council. So,
Okay, gotta make sure that, so, will you vote on that, please? Right, thank you, okay. Can I get a motion on that? That's the relinquishment?
Do you want to?
Put that, okay,
Mr.
great.
Mayor,
Please vote.
can we have an oral vote on the first item?
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think it was working, was it?
all right, it wasn't.
So on the first vote to take 2.5 at the end of the meeting, please vote, or please vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now you can vote on the second item.
Now we're gonna vote on the second item, right?
Yes, please. Mr. Mayor, please submit your vote.
Oh, okay.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great, okay, so we'll have, just to make sure, I'm gonna make sure I put it on my, we'll have 5-4, right, after the consent calendar, and then we'll have 2.5 at the end. Okay, now the fun stuff. Oh, no, we have communications from city council members. Mr. Spriggs, would you like to speak?
yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's been a busy couple of weeks, or 3 weeks since our last city council meeting. I had the honor to appear on the Union Tribune radio program with Mike McCoy, really a true pillar of our community, to talk about the proposed, the president's proposed budget cuts that would affect the estuary here in Imperial Beach, as well as all other national estuarine research reserves around the country. And so we had a very good conversation about all the reasons why we need to have that funding restored and continued for fiscal year 2018. The mayor may talk about this, but I attended the meeting he chaired of the Sandag Shoreline Preservation Working Group on the 1st, and very interesting discussion, a full house regarding one of the very interesting presentations was one by one of our colleagues on the City Council of Coronado, who talked about the example of Netherlands and all of the things that they are doing to address sea level rise, and the entire community is, the entire country is proactively involved in that. Could only think of analogies for Imperial Beach, where the entire community needs to also be involved in what we're trying to do there as well. I also co-chaired or chaired the IBWC Citizens Forum last Thursday, and just as the meeting before that, we had a very large attendance, a very animated group of citizens regarding the cross-border sewage spills. And I think that the IBWC is getting the message now. To make sure they're getting the message, I am, with the consent of the rest of the Citizens Forum Board, as I mentioned at that meeting, I'm drafting a strong letter to the two commissioners, essentially saying that the public is unanimously and clearly not happy with the response of the IBWC, with their lack of leadership and their lack of proactive remedies to the situation. That letter is being circulated with the board right now, and I hope it'll go out in the next few days. Finally, I popped in just last night to the Lieutenant Magana's Café de la Comunidad event, which was well attended, and my Spanish needs a lot of improvement, but it's good enough to know that you were doing a heck of a good job communicating with the members of the community who showed up for that, and I'm glad that you had a good turnout. Thanks.
Mr. Patton.
Sure, thank you. I see a room full of VIPs here. Thank you for coming. Former Mayor Diane Rose, City Manager over there, Gary Brown, Dan Malcolm, Port Commissioner Esteen. It's nice to have all these, if I missed anybody, sorry. It's nice to have the Navy, all these people attending our meetings. So I went to the Memorial Day event at Veterans Park. It's a very touching event. Great turnout. And that was, like I said, very touching. Mar Vista High School had their graduation, and what a show. It was the valedictorian was not only a 4.5 GPA starting college as a middle year sophomore, but he was also a comedian. And he had the crowd. I mean, my eyes were watering from laughing. This guy was great. And all the kids that were graduating and that go to that school are very high caliber kids, and we're lucky to have them. Went to South Bay Union School District's district championship. I've been to all 4 of them this year, and where they honor teachers, staff, community members, students for what a great job they do for the district and for all the kids. Imperial Beach Lifeguards this weekend hosted the Regional Lifeguard Academy, and that academy is a big group of adults who must do this 80-hour class in order to receive a certificate to be able to lifeguard on the beach. And it's very strenuous. And Imperial Beach is one of the most unique beaches because we're close to the border. We have a river mouth. We have a pier. We have jetties. We have the estuary. And so these students really got a really good look at what it's like to be a lifeguard. The IB Lifeguards did a great job. And speaking about IB Lifeguards, I support them 100%. They're a great squad. IB Lifeguards are also starting their IB Junior Lifeguards this Monday. And there's going to be over 100 kids wearing yellow shirts, riding bikes and walking. You'll see them all around town, and it's a great, great program. And just be on the lookout for them. Say hello to them, and they're a great bunch. So, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Patton. And apparently your son is going to be a captain of the JGs this year. Is that right?
Yeah, from what I understand, he worked out very hard this last weekend. He had a sprained ankle. I told him, I go, look, you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And he did it with a sprained ankle, and I was very proud of him. So, thank you.
Congratulations, he's a great kid. Mr. West.
Yes. So it has been a busy couple of weeks. May 20th, I was very happy to attend the IBU Women's Club Spring Luncheon, and where we were served some amazing barbecue, and got to speak and talk to a lot of our very concerned citizens, and they had a great time. But it was a wonderful event. The mayor was there too, and we had a great time talking to them all. And yeah, that was fun. And then on the 25th, I was actually able to participate in the Border to Bayshore community meeting at Southwestern High School, and we saw a lot of the proposals for our Class 1 bikeway that would actually go from the border to the Bayshore. It's a very, very interesting proposal, and a very, very exceptional thing for really moving people from the border to our bikeway. So I was very excited to be a part of it. I was there with the commencement with the, and I laughed as well with they're quite the characters over at Mar Vista High School. I was impressed, to tell you the truth. Some things that are coming up that I think is very important. This Friday, the Surf Rider is actually holding an estuary benefit and a movie night. They're going to be showing a movie at 7 o'clock. I hope everybody can attend, and they're actually going to be talking about a little about educating about the plume tracker and different things like that are part of our community that people own. And then Saturday, Global Wellness Day is starting at 10 a.m. They're going to be doing a bikeway trip from the pier to Bayshore, to the bikeway village and back. So that starts at 10 a.m. I highly recommend everybody comes. It's going to be a great event, and it's going to be super fun. And that same day is they're actually doing Surf Riders actually doing a beach cleanup again at 3 p.m. and it's actually at the pier there. So busy day on Saturday, and then also on June 15th we have the Bayshore Bikeway Working Group, which I'll be at as well. So if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. West. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. I have to say that you two are really brave men to go to a women's club luncheon. Because if you ever want to know the concerns of the community, go to a women's club meeting.
True.
Thank you for doing that. As our representative to MTS, I did attend last Friday's SANDAG meeting. It was a joint meeting between the Regional Planning Group and the Transportation Group. Transportation Committee. It was all the items on the agenda were information only. I too attended the Memorial Day observance event at Veterans Park. The guest speaker was Mark West, who did just an outstanding job. Again, the crowd was very somber, but I'm so glad our community takes the time to do that event and recognize those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. I also was at the Mar Vista graduation. Outstanding. The valedictorian, his parents used to own Cowabunga. So you remember Fabrice and his wife. And I remember going to Cowabunga and seeing that young man back there behind the counter doing his homework. His parents did not, either one of them, do not have a high school diploma. So he didn't let that stop him. So we are extremely proud of our valedictorian. And I just wanted to say, Mayor, I thought that your speech at the graduation was actually one of the best speeches you've ever given. Thank you.
Great. Thanks everybody for all attending all those events. I was at quite a few of them. Mr. Spriggs, you did a great job managing that meeting, the IBWC meeting. It was a tough environment. You did a great job. So thank you for doing that. I noticed that there's only you and Melissa Quiroz as board members that bothered to show up. So we're brave enough to show up. So I appreciate that. And then again, yeah, Mr. Spriggs, Mr. West, you did a great job speaking at the Memorial Day. It was a really good speech. So I appreciate that. Yeah. And on Monday, I was in Tijuana at the invitation of the mayor of Tijuana to celebrate World Environment Day, but it was more an opportunity to really talk about water quality with just about every level of state, local, and federal official that is dealing with that issue in Mexico, including the state representative of Baja California for the Ministry of the Environment, the person who's in charge of the sewage agency in Baja California in Tijuana, obviously the mayor of Tijuana, and people from the private sector, including the desal plant operators that want to build a desal plant in Rosarito Beach. They promised me that they're also pushing on this. In addition, there were dozens and dozens of protesters there who were very concerned about water quality. It's not just something that we share on this side of the border. In fact, they were so animated. The governor was supposed to be there, but he didn't show up because he was worried about the extent of the protesters. So there's two sides to that. First, there are all kinds of areas in Baja California without water, and then number two, there's all kinds of areas in Baja California, including Tijuana, with lots of sewage in the streets. So and on the beaches. So they have a water crisis in Tijuana. And so they not only are we pressuring them, but they're getting a lot of pressure from their own folks, which is really good to hear. Tomorrow, I'll be meeting with the head of the sewage agency, as well as the head of SELA, the International Boundary and Water Commission's Mexico division, and then with the International Boundary and Water Commission, as well as the Consul of Mexico in San Diego and the Consul of Tijuana in Tijuana, the Consul of the U.S. in Tijuana, sorry. And as well as someone from the city of Coronado. They're going to give us an update on what they're planning. Right now, they're planning on doing about $25 million worth of improvements to 5 pumps, collector pipes in Tijuana, as well as the Punta Banderas facility. They're using their own money to do that. So that's good news. Additionally, we've sent out a letter, a sign-on letter. We've asked every mayor in San Diego County to sign on a letter to go to our congressional representatives asking for funding for the sewage infrastructure upgrades, as well as the additional letter went out to South County mayors and officials asking to the International Boundary and Water Commission, asking them to put in diversion infrastructure on the U.S. side of the border. So we're moving as many pieces as we can. We're not done yet, but we'll continue to push forward. And this week we had an advisory on our beach due to south swell pollution that was also had hit Playas Tijuana really hard, and that was due to the south swell and south wind. And more than likely what's Punta Banderas or the sewage plant that's 6 miles south of the border. That's it for me, Mr. Hall.
Mayor, I know you're an author and you've written a couple of books. Later tonight, I'm going to have a poem signing out in the back room for the poem I wrote for Hank Levine. And I'm telling you, I'm getting national-wide press for this poem. It was awesome. But no, I just want to take a little bit of time, and there's going to be a lot of people saying this, but I'm the lucky one that gets to say it first. Really appreciate Hank and all he did for this community. And everybody knows he's probably the best public works director that man's ever known. But I just want Hank to know, and I think everybody does know this, he's actually a better man than he is a public works director. Hank is just the top-notch person, and we're going to miss him around here. He's really done a lot for our community. So just wanted to be the first one to take the advantage of being able to say that. It's done great things for this community.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hall. We have some public speaker slips. June Engel.
So hi, I'm June Engel. I'm the branch manager at the Imperial Beach Library. Andy, I'm wondering if you'd like to come do a reading for us, maybe a poetry reading for us at the library. So I think we'd really like that.
Yep.
Headquarters asked me to come down and talk a little bit about our first month in the library. But the first thing I want to do is thank Hank, because he's been a very good friend and a very good fighter for the Boy Scouts. I really appreciate that, and I will continue to give you my film on applications. Okay. Did you get a mug? Okay, I'm on it. Okay, first month in the library. So they asked me to come down here and talk a little bit what's going on in the library. It's absolutely incredible to be able to work in this building. The way I described it to my boss the other day, Robin, was it's the opening of the Mary Tyler Moore show. She goes out there, she throws off her hat, puts her hands on, does this little twirl. I'm the first one in the building usually, and I go out there in that lobby and I do that little twirl because it just feels so good to be in there. And it's just so beautiful to be in there, and it's so overwhelmingly great and exciting for us. Our teen room's being used like it's supposed to. The teens that designed it perfectly. All in use, no problems whatsoever. The kids are using the interactive and engaging play therapy or educational stuff that we have in that back room. That Lego wall is really, really loved. The study rooms are being used. The seniors are using the community rooms in the morning, and Joanne is wonderful to work with, and it's all working out really fine. The only complaint I've been having is that there's not a lot of books on the shelves. And I can put that down to, and I tell them that, well, there's a lot of people coming in and they're checking out, and they're going, well, it's still kind of empty. And then I actually explain to them I actually did a number on the first month that we were open of how many people have come into our library, and Ed's heard me give this number before. It's 31,258 people came through since the grand opening the first month. So that's a lot of people, and that's why there's no books on the shelves, which is a good thing, and that's what we really like. I hope to keep you guys updated on upcoming programs. We're starting a bunch of new stuff. I know that we have the date of July 26th for the public safety cook-off. That's coming up. And by the way, congratulations to the fire department at the demolition derby taking second place. That was pretty good. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. Now we have Bonnie Riley.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Riley. The reason I'm here tonight is my concern about the parking. I think I tried to speak with you on 13th Street, where they have taken that whole side, and the parking is, you can't park there from 2 a.m. to 5. And I mean, it's not because of street sweeping or any reason. It's not because of the new area that they're opening. And it's really become hard on us that live around there. It's like the other night I had to go to the hospital. I didn't come home till 12 with a friend. I had to park 5 blocks away. I live in those condos right there, but that's how far I had to walk. And that whole side of the street was completely empty. And I personally have received 2 parking tickets. I didn't know you couldn't, and I parked there, and then they put the sign up and I got a ticket. So, I mean, I don't understand the 2 to 5. I don't understand, and it's every day. So that was my concern.
Great, thank you so much. And
Uh-huh.
just for the record, we can't respond when it's not on the agenda.
Right.
So we are very interested in your issue, but we, under the Brown Act, we can't respond to you. So,
Okay.
great,
All right,
thank you. Thank you so much for coming in. Great. Now we have the exciting portion of the evening presentations. 1.1, recognition of Hank Levine for 23 years of city of the service of Imperial Beach. Should we start with the public, for the guest speakers, or first, right? Yeah, so we have a number of distinguished guest speakers who would like to have say some words on to honor Hank. And so we'll start off with Victor Avina from the County of San Diego Supervisor Greg Cox's office.
Good evening, Mayor Dedina and City Council members. Victor Vino, Supervisor Greg Cox's office. Here, it's my pleasure to be here to help honor Hank Levine. I've been in and around the city of IB for about 1.5 years, but obviously Hank has been a tenant of the community, so wanted to come and present this proclamation on behalf of the supervisor. Several whereas clauses in here, but I'll just read some of the highlights if you don't mind for a sec there. So whereas after nearly 23 years with the city of Imperial Beach, Public Works Director Hank Levine is retiring from public service. And whereas Hank Levine's distinguished military service included a Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam and commanding a mine-sweeping ship in Vietnam that found the first Russian sea mine that proved Russia's covert support for the Viet Cong, which was documented in an article in Time magazine. Very impressive. Whereas Hank Levine believes in giving back to the community and became a scoutmaster in 1995. Supervisor loves that about you, how involved you are. And has worked with more than 50 Eagle Scouts to complete numerous Eagle projects that have benefited the city of Imperial Beach. And for his leadership, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Boy Scouts of America. And whereas the County of San Diego is committed to recognizing and honoring those individuals who are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and Hank Levine is one such worthy individual. Therefore, be it proclaimed by the chairwoman and all the members of the Board of Supervisors that they commend Hank Levine for his outstanding service, leadership, and commitment to Imperial Beach residents, and do hereby declare the 7th day of June to be Hank Levine Day throughout San Diego County. Thanks so much, Hank.
Of the United States Navy, Commander Dan Cook from NBC.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, distinguished council members, City of Imperial Beach. It's our honor to be here tonight. Commander Dan Cook, Public Works Officer for the base, representing Captain Scott Mulvihill. The CO would have liked to have been here tonight, but he wasn't able to come, so he sent his Public Works Officer, since we have a common bond there and taking care of things that most people don't think are very glamorous. But we love them, you know, utilities and all of that. So as neighbors with Imperial Beach, we value our partnership with you very much and have had numerous engagements with Hank over the years. Lieutenant Dan Cloutier, when he was the Assistant Public Works Officer for the base, he wanted me to relay an anecdote of Hank, and I think most people will recognize that that's definitely Hank right there. There's a drainage ditch from where the Silver Strand Training Complex South comes out into the city, and every year we got to go out there and clean it, or heavy rains and issues related to stormwater and runoff. And Dan tells the story of Hank out there. I think he says he had a pith helmet on, like his back in the old Navy days, and a machete, and he's leading the charge through this, you know, thing, clearing things out. And there's all these much younger and, you know, apparently more physically fit guys behind him. You know, they can't keep up. And that's kind of the story of Hank. As a good neighbor, he helped to keep the Navy accountable, and we appreciate that, to do the best that we can for you with any of the interactions and support that was required. You kept us honest, and I think that was the old sailor in you. And so on behalf of the CO, it may not be much, but to a Navy guy, you understand the challenge coin and the CO's coin that he would like to present, and a Navy ball cap. And just can't say enough great things and how much we'll miss you and working with you, and appreciate the opportunity that we've had.
I apologize, Hank, for photobombing all your photos. We can retake those. We'll reschedule another meeting to retake those. I will move. Now we have Park Commissioner Dan Malcolm.
Mayor and Council, Hank, I would say that the city manager actually said it best when he said that you are a good and honorable man. You know, so we're here to honor your service tonight, but you, sir, are truly a really great man. And the city's been lucky to have you. And I've got a proclamation here for you. It's got a bunch of whereases and wherefores on it, but I felt like I kind of wanted to tell a story when I was a young council member, and I got to meet you, one of the first city employees I got to meet. And you may not remember this. You took me on a tour and showed me public works in the city and kind of some of the hot spots and things we were working on. And I was incredibly impressed by all the work that you were getting done and kind of the scope of your duties. But then I became even more impressed as I started, you know, walking around the city, becoming more aware. Hank Levine was everywhere. And it would be on a Monday, on a Thursday, on a Friday. I'd be out on a Saturday going for a run, and you see Hank, you know, scrubbing something. You see Hank on a Sunday. It got to the point, Hank, where Barry Johnson, the former city manager, a couple city managers ago, said, Hank, take a day off. You would never, ever even take a day off. So I just want to say that that level of just showing what the work ethic was, the mentorship to the people that work for you in the public works, the mentorship that you have shown to your Boy Scouts, over 50 Eagle Scouts. Hank, you are really, you've set an incredible example. You have set really a great bar that's going to be very tough to fill your shoes. But thank you for 23 great years here in Imperial Beach.
It got worse.
Now we have the South Bay Union School District, Chris Brown, trustee Chris Brown here to represent.
Okay, Hank, hold on. Chris Brown, Vice President, South Bay Union School District. We didn't have time to do a proclamation because we don't meet till tomorrow night, but we do have a letter here, and it's to the City Council, and it says, Dear Councilman, on behalf of the South Bay Union School District, we want to acknowledge Public Works Director Hank Levine on the occasion of his retirement after 22 years of service, I'm losing my voice, to the Imperial Beach community. Hank has a long history of service going back to his career in the United States Navy. He is also generously given of his time and expertise as evidenced by his work with the Boy Scouts of America. South Bay Union has benefited greatly from our partnership with the City of Imperial Beach, most notably our work with the Public Works Department. It has been a pleasure to work with Hank on projects including street improvements and safety initiatives. Hank is collaborative, knowledgeable, and always focuses on what is best for the residents of Imperial Beach. We honor and thank Hank for his commitment to service and for his many contributions to our community and South Bay Union School District. We wish him the best on his retirement, and it's signed by our superintendent. So
Now we have Mary Diane Rose.
Well, hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Hank, I would not miss this for the world. I have such fond memories of endless hours with Chew Rump and Sue Rump. And we laugh about that, but really because of Hank's efforts and diligence at what at that time was new environmental legislation, Imperial Beach actually was really on the cutting edge of protecting our waterway. So all of those times were well worth it for sure. And other people have mentioned this, but just your dedication to the bones of the city, if you will. You know, the streets, the sewer, everything, you know, operating in tip-top condition, and especially your Eagle Scouts. We have so many wonderful landscaping projects that the Eagle Scouts did throughout the entire city, and they're absolutely beautiful. And even the ones that are many years old are thriving and doing great. They did a wonderful job designing all of that. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to really thank you so much for all of the work you've done for this community. It's lasting. It's your legacy that's going to last for many, many, many years to come. And one last memory that I wanted to share, something that really stands out for me as my time as mayor here in Imperial Beach, was the last pole-out ceremony that we did for the undergrounding project on, was it 9th or 9th Street? And Hank showed tremendous courage in allowing me to actually operate that huge piece of equipment and pull the pole out. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And congratulations. Hope you would really enjoy your retirement with your family.
Now we have former city manager Gary Brown.
Hank, as I was perambulating through the community, I bumped into Rick Van Nybeshen, and he woke up and he just said, "Who done it?" He said, "I can cross Palm Avenue and IB Boulevard more safely, and there aren't many cracked sidewalks to fall over and sue the city. Darn it, but who done it?" If the streets are smoother and the playgrounds prettier and children romp on them, who done it? If there are fewer flooded houses and less dirt swept into the ocean during a storm, who done that? And I can see the sky because there aren't as many wires hanging over it as there used to be. If children and adults now have a soccer field and a skate park, who done it? If trash and recyclables are efficiently picked up and I can drop off hazardous junk, plus have a well-organized garage sale, who done that? If my toilet works and water runs, who done it? Who's created a museum of surfboards and built a Palm Avenue street end and a park? Who's changed my city so darn much with his perseverance, patience, and hard work? Who's shown us all that small steps, many, many small steps, add up to major accomplishments? And won't this person be missed now that he's leaving? Yes and no. His hard work, his smile, we'll miss his presence, and his drive, his dedication, and his optimism shown through innumerable small deeds and mentoring. But his mentoring and example of what public service can be have left us stronger and ready to carry on as he'd want us to. And finally, I can't resist this, but hearing, as the county supervisor's staff person mentioned, Hank has this propensity to find out things about Russians, I guess. And you know where I'm going. I got a tweet. It's from the president saying that Robert Mueller, please do not hire Hank. Thank you.
Okay, we have Ron Powell from the Port District. Sorry, I should have called you guys up together.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I came to know Hike through my work at the port as a port staff member. We have bi-monthly meetings down here, and there's always a laundry list of things we have to work through because we have a lot to do down here. We realize that. And Hank is always good about pointing out the things that we need to do. And he's always right. Whenever he says something isn't quite what it should be, he's right. And he keeps us on our toes. He always did. And we're going to miss Hank. We love working with him. And he was always a straight shooter, as everybody said. And he's just a good man. And, you know, it's really tough to lose good people. And we're going to miss you, Hank. Thank you so much for your work.
Great, now we have Steve South from Medco. Steve here? Oh, yes.
No, I am running. Hank, I hadn't planned to say anything, and that's because we have a great deal of respect for Hank. We have worked for Hank for 17 years, and we've gotten those 3 a.m. Both calls and emails from Hank as he was climbing out of a manhole somewhere, doing God knows what. But I can honestly tell you that in all of our experiences throughout Southern California, Hank is the most vested, loyal, honest public servant that we have ever encountered. And it has been an honor to work for Hank in every way, shape, and form. And years ago, Hank would pull our contract out and he'd tell us what we needed to do in the contract. After a couple of years, we would just say yes. And Hank would say, well, it's not in the contract. You're saying yes to things that aren't in the contract. Do we need to amend it? And we'd say no. And he said, well, we appreciate that. And we would always tell him that we appreciated him because
Hank was always working hard for the citizens of Imperial Beach, whether they knew it or not. And the good thing about IB is they always knew it. People love and appreciate and respect you, Hank. And we're among them. So congratulations on your retirement. Well earned. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. And I'm here really because I guess it's a little over 8 years ago when we had the privilege to get to know this wonderful city and to have the privilege to partner with the city. One of the first people I think I met was Hank. It was pretty intense, and the job assignment, it had a lot of issues with Caltrans, as you're well aware. And I don't know if I'm going to forgive you for that, pushing that on us, Hank, but we've had a phenomenal relationship. And one of the things we knew about working with the city of Imperial Beach is that what they said they did, and they were people of integrity. And it was a phenomenal community with tremendous upside, make impacts in the lives of not only the people that live in that community, but the people that serve that community. And we felt very blessed and very thankful to have the opportunity to get to know you, Hank, and to get to work with you. More importantly, get to appreciate you and your commitment and dedication, not only to the community, but your service and your heart and the wonderful man that you are. And so when I heard that we were celebrating tonight, I definitely, more in the company wanted to be here, but I had to be here. It's been a wonderful 8 years. Could not have been a better experience. Could not have had any more respect for a person in your position and a man of your caliber. And so we just want to say thank you for the privilege and the pleasure to get to know you and really get to love you and enjoy the experience in working with you and serving the city of Imperial Beach. We thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have the legendary Frank Tassin from San Diego Gas and Electric, literally a living legend of Imperial Beach. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, come on. I almost feel as unprepared as Steve South just did a minute ago. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Frank Tassin. It's great to be back here in town. I couldn't miss this opportunity when I got word of it to come here and pay tribute to Hank for the work that he's done for this city. I have the privilege, like a lot of us, to have grown up in this city and to have seen a lot of public works directors before Hank and seen the condition the city was in before. And I remember when you arrived here, Hank. I think it was during the time when I was representing the city at the Port District, and I think you were arriving for your second or your third career. But I remember being in awe about how unassuming you were, how quiet you were, how honest you were, how hardworking you were. I mean, I was so impressed during the whole time of you being a real unsung hero in this town, getting the work done. I mean, whether we were doing events up at the beachfront and coordinating with the Port District to getting these big time events done, I never had to worry about it. During my time with SDG&E, when we were doing a lot of coordination work, and now from where I was perched at SDG&E, I saw public works directors from all over, and you were at the top of the list. I remember I didn't have to worry about whether it was an undergrounding project or we were replacing streetlights or what have you. The work was going to get done, and I never had to worry about it. I'm so happy for your retirement. I couldn't pass up this opportunity to come here and pay my respects to you. I'm super happy for you. I wish you a long, healthy, and happy retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so now I guess we could start with Any staff, or did you want to say something? You already said something, so we can start with Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Lori Bragg.
Thank you. Well, when you got here, we were both in better shape. The city was not. And with you at the helm, look where we are now. It has just been a ride, and I'm going to take you back in time where you and I were in charge of a disaster preparedness meeting. Mayor Bixler was our mayor at the time, and he put you and I in charge of this disaster preparedness meeting. It was an El Nino year, horrific year. The community was wondering what was the city going to be doing for them. So Hank and I put our heads together and came up with what we thought was the best meeting on the planet. We had it at the school. We had vendors there. We had public works there. We had sandbags there, not filled. We had one sandbag that was a representative sandbag telling the people, now you need to go out and get this sandbag. And we had all of this passive information that we thought people were going to go around and collect this information. Well, as the meeting started, the people walked in and went up the bleachers and sat down and didn't do anything. And so Mayor Bixler made a speech and kind of tried to spur the people on to go and appreciate the hard work that Hank had really put into this meeting. People just sat there. It was a disaster. So Mayor Bixler pulled Hank and I both outside. Now, Mike's an ex-Navy man and Hank's an ex-Navy man. I have not been in the Navy. So they were speaking a language I did not know. But our directive was, you two will have another meeting and you will do it right this time. And both of us responded, aye, aye, sir. But Hank was at the lead of that. I don't know if you remember that meeting. We have often joked about it in the past, and it's one of my favorite memories of you. And over Memorial Day weekend, I was watching the movie Mr. Roberts, and it just reminded me of you. How the sailors were saying, you know, we ate and then he ate. We slept and then he slept. And I'm just so reminded of you, and that's how you've approached your tenure here at the city of Imperial Beach. I remember especially during Sandcastle days, you would be the first one down there and you would be the last one to go, and you wouldn't go home until everything was in tip-top order. I want to end with thanking Carol for sharing your husband with us. We give him back in not as good a shape as he was when he got here, but there have been many nights and many weekends where you haven't had your husband with you. So we return him to you now, and may you both enjoy a wonderful retirement. Thank you.
So I am the new guy here, but I share so many things with you, Hank, and even though it took us like a week to go through the entire city because I had so many questions, you were always there, and I could feel the bond between us. And I want to tell you, my son is an Eagle Scout, and it is people like you being a mentor to these young men and women now, or whatever, where we're going, that is so important. And I really appreciate that. And my son thanks you as well. He's like, oh, that's really cool. So it's great. That's a great organization to be a part of, and you are a true leader. But there's another reason. I looked on your wall and we talked about some things, and I didn't know until just recently that you were a captain of a sweep, and I was a captain of a sweep too. I had chief. And a lot of people don't understand the term ship shape. Well, you run ship shape here in Imperial Beach, and I could see it from everything that you did and everything you touched. And I just want you to know, I know the Navy never takes a day off, and neither do you. So thank you for all your hard work, and I'm truly honored to know you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Hank, I was at the lifeguard station lifeguarding 23 years ago, I guess it was, when you were taking like probably one of your first tours of the lifeguard station. And I have to tell you, you look as good now as you did then, much like myself. And And I think you have the same pin and pocket protector that you've always had, which I love. I mean, maybe you could retire that too. For your Eagle projects, I hope those some ways somehow can continue. You've done every as mentioned. You're perfection. You're a perfectionist. You like to get it done right, and that's been said. You've kept Imperial Beach, classic Imperial Beach, Southern California, and that was a goal that our city wants, and you did that, and it's evident anywhere you look. And I just want to thank you for that. And in retirement, this time of year, there's a lot of people retirement, so they ask, you're busier than ever, and people come up to you and ask you each day, so what'd you do today? And don't feel obligated like you have to do anything. Maybe your wife's shaking your head right now. I'm sorry. You have projects lined up for him? Okay, never mind. Get to work. All right. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Spriggs.
Hank, I think that's probably one reason you've worked so long is all those projects on your wife's list, the honeydews. You've been, just as everybody has said, a tremendous resource, a tremendous person for this council. Because of you, Imperial Beach has the best streets, soon to be the best alleys, the best infrastructure of any town, any city in the county. That's something we are all proud of, and you're right at the middle of that and made that happen. I'm really going to miss you because of all of the city officials that have over the years, the 6.5 years or so that I've been on the city council, have made presentations to the council. You've probably been done by far the most because of all of the projects that we've all seen over the years and that all have to come through the council. And therefore, you have probably had to bear more questions from me than any other member of the staff. And I am eternally grateful to you for the grace and goodwill and patience that you dealt with those questions and the wise and smart answers, not smart Alec, but smart answers that you provided. I'm really grateful for that. And for many of you who don't know, Hank and I kind of go back a ways. He asked me to serve on his Seacoast Drive streetscape planning project with about maybe a half a dozen other citizens from around Imperial Beach back in 2004, 2005, something like that. And that was the first exposure that I had working with the city of Imperial Beach, my city, my beloved city, on a public improvement project. And that led from one thing to the next to where we are today. The rest is history, and you're to blame for the fact that I'm sitting here on the city council asking you questions at every meeting, et cetera. It's really all your fault. But seriously, thank you so much for your service and for all you've done and for your interaction and your contributions. The Scout projects, which have all been really wonderful and have helped beautify the city, as well as allow those scouts to do some public service and get started on the right path in their lives. So thank you for everything you've done, Hank.
Any other comments for Scott? Great. Well, we have thank you, everybody. First of all the special guests that came out from every sector that we work with, and of course our city council and city staff. We have a special plaque. I'm not plaque, but present for Hank. And it's you'll see what it is. It's very appropriate, but it has a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson on it that says, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail," which I think summarizes and is really appropriate for you. But there were three things that I wanted to comment on. that go way back before my time on the council, which is obviously only pretty brief. But I wasn't much for July 4th. I go to bed pretty early, actually, especially July 4th weekend. The surf's usually really good. And so I pride myself on being the first person at the beach in the morning. And so I'd show up on July 5th early, dawn patrol as it's getting light. And after tens of thousands of people are on the beach partying and doing whatever, I'd always be amazed every year on July 5th that our beach was literally spotless. Spotless. I mean, not anything. You couldn't tell anyone had been there. It literally was one of the most impressive displays of seamanship that I've ever seen. You kept our beach, and you have kept our beach shipshape. So, and that's really important given the fact that there were riots on the city of San Diego beaches, and the Surfrider Foundation had to organize special brigades to clean off all the couches and furniture that the city of San Diego Public Services or Works Department left on their beach. My second sort of impression or image of you is as some decisions were made by our federal agencies, not the Navy, that control jurisdiction to our south and land to our south, and unfortunately had decided to take too long to unblock the Tijuana River mouth. And as you know, it started that unfortunate decision led to the flooding of our city. And I remember I had driven down in the truck, I think with the lifeguards and Andy, and I think we were there pretty early. And there's Hank with his clipboard, right, on it. And what was important about that is we forcefully pushed the Fish and Wildlife Service to get that open. And there was never any question that the city would assist in that and provide the machinery. You never questioned it. There was no words of doubt, nothing. It was just, we're on it. And you did it. So thank you for that. You literally saved our city from further flooding. And then finally, what people don't understand, and I think Mayor Rose and Gary Brown mentioned it, is that our city is a leader in environmental management and natural resource management. And I say that with great pride because under your leadership, our public works department really is an environmental services department. And you have a great young man, Chris Helmer, that you've mentored and is taking a leadership role in all types of issues, including the management and restoration of the Tijuana River Valley, which is a testament to your old school conservation and natural resource management values. So that's great. And I'll echo what Andy said. You're a great man. And I know that because I've been able to watch the growing up of one of your Eagle Scouts, Park Funderburk, who I've known literally since he was born. His mom, Terry Fenner, grew up with me. I grew up on Hemlock, and she just grew up on the other side of 15th Street in San Diego. And today, a few years after Park being an Eagle Scout, he is an accomplished outdoorsman who's been climbed Mount Whitney, been on all kinds of multi-day hikes. He's a really, really great young man, and that has a lot to do with how you shaped him and really pushed him along with the rest of your very, very great Boy Scout pack. So troop. So thank you so much for all your service. There's another quote. I don't usually do quotes, but one of our staff members, Ed, has some nice quotes here, and I think you should share this with Hank. Maybe we'll put it as a plaque. Another quote from Emerson said, "Shallow men believe in luck, strong men believe in cause and effect." And you've definitely been you're a strong man. You're a great man. So thank you so much for all the work and service you've done to our community and to our city. Thank you. Would the council like to present this together? Great. We'll do a photo. Oh, Chris has a presentation. Oh, after this. Okay. Where's He's where you can't see. Well, it's still well.
All right, Carol, we have one more gift for you too, some flowers, but I think Jackie gave you a bunny or something to bring up. So I'll bring that up as I give this to you. I think the rabbit really represents Hank. Really, thank you very much, Carol. And we thought it would be appropriate to go over and highlight some of our favorite projects, CAP projects from Hank that kind of represents what Hank has done for the city. We all know Hank has walked every square inch of this town, and there isn't an inch of this town that he hasn't had some hand in improving. So Ed helped me put together some of these CAPs, and these are just some of the favorite CAP projects that we're going to remember Hank by. So we're going to start the tour going to the Bayshore Bikeway. Hank was a major advocate for the Bayshore Bikeway. In fact, he helped construct the Bayshore Bikeway that came around Imperial Beach. He's an advocate for active transportation, as you can see throughout the project. And he brought this bikeway to this town. And once it was put in, he rode his bike from San Carlos to the Public Works office. And that was probably after getting up before him and hiking to the top of Cowles Mountain as well, knowing Hank. And part of his work on the Bayfront has really led to the development of partnerships with a lot of our local agencies. And one of the partnerships was the restoration of part of the Public Works yard, the industrial yard, into a bikeway access spot for the Bayshore Bikeway. And that partnered up with the Fish and Wildlife projects to install a birding and walking trail and overlook deck that goes along the Bayshore Bayfront, and also to the salt pond restoration. So Hank is actually one of the biggest undercover environmentalists in this town, and you just would not know it. And just to make that point even more clear, one of Hank's other major environmental accomplishment was the purchase of the Nepal Tunnel property on South Seacoast. This was a restoration project that the city of Imperial Beach led. Hank restored estuary habitat in the Tijuana estuary and then dedicated it to the Tijuana River Natural Estuary Research Reserve. And this is him on his last week of work, still inspecting the memorial bench and the plaque out on that restoration spot right there. And I think we heard the story a little bit about how Hank trumps through the drainage channel at the NOLF facility. But back when Hank started in the 90s, the Oneonta neighborhood used to routinely flood during every winter storm. And it wasn't until the El Nino winter of 97 that Hank went out there in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm, trudging the perimeter fence of NOLF to discover the location of a storm drain outfall that no one knew existed on the far side of the base, and then identifying the reason why the Oneonta neighborhood was flooding was because there was no channel that channeled the water out of the storm drain outfall. So then Hank worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Navy, and the Fish and Wildlife to permit and to eventually bulldoze a channel out to the Tijuana estuary, which since then has resolved all the major flooding that has occurred in the Oneonta neighborhood. And until then, the city was just flooding and no one knew what to do. So it was Hank's determination in the middle of the night to get out there to identify and to solve the problem. One of Hank's favorite projects of all time in this town is Pump Station 9. If you guys know Pump Station 9, it is the absolute workhorse of this city. It's where the majority of the city's sewer gets pumped out of town. It is probably the biggest piece and most important piece of infrastructure in this entire town. And Hank's favorite project of all time was constructing this, but probably most likely any other sewer project where he's able to work underground and be able to do his work, really know what he's doing is making a difference, and no one else really knows that how important this piece of infrastructure is. It's underground, it's major, it's massive. You would never know it existed there. And this project kind of represents everything that Hank loved about doing in this town. Another project Hank worked on is working and improving our parks. Hank did dozens and dozens of projects for our park. Most of them are really small, but these little incremental improvements led to vast improvements. Then eventually we just decided to give Hank money and actually do some bigger projects. And one of them was we built a skate park. Hank worked with skate engineers, built a very functional skate park, which talking with the skaters, they say it's one of the best connected feature skate parks there is in San Diego County, where you can transition between different skate features. Hank was in the middle of all the skaters and he fit just right in. Similar to that, when the city wanted to put in a soccer field, Hank put in a soccer field. He just did it. We got a fantastic soccer field. You go on there any day after work or any weekend, this place is packed. So our parks are looking a lot better because of it. One of Hank's recent projects we're just finishing up right now is the Elm Avenue improvement. And what I really want to say what this highlights about Hank is Hank took every opportunity possible to work with the schools and develop partnerships to make lasting improvements to all of the school. Elm Avenue, now that it has white sidewalks, decorative concrete and everything, it's hard to imagine it looking any other way right now. And this was just last weekend, and that's our Thailand supervisor out there riding, using it with his son and coming back from water polo practice. And finally, I wanted to end with Hank's appreciation for the arts. There's a lot of artwork around this town if you start looking around it. Hank brought in numerous urban trees, they call them, in around town. And he involved art in most of his CAP projects, whether it was actual sculptures or whether it's just decorative inlays that represented the coastal or beach themes. And then Hank had some artistic skills himself, and this is actually one of Hank's ideas was the installment of Navy signal flags on the entrance to NOF. This one actually spells out "Go Surf" on it. I've been asking around the rest of the public works guys of how to signal new messages, and even the Navy guys don't know what it is. So I had to go find some Navy guys that know how to come up with some new messages in there. But this is a lasting improvement that everyone drives by will all be thinking of Hank. And Hank's leaving us with more projects that are on the list. And because you guys are in the middle of a budget process, I just wanted to throw this map up. These are the projects that we're working on right now. We got numerous projects, sewer projects, new parks, restrooms. I don't know. The map's just really to represent that the Hank's legacy is continuing on. He's still leaving us more work than we can do right now. So I just wanted to say congratulations, Hank, on everything you've done. I wanted to put an invite that staff has provided and council have provided refreshments, cake, and cookies in the back in the community room. So everyone here, please, after this item, go back to the community room and eat all the food that we're providing. It's my understanding that we got to continue with this meeting to stay on a schedule so Mr. Spriggs can catch his plane later tonight. So the TV is turned on and you guys can continue to watch the city council meeting if you wish, but please enjoy the refreshment.
Well, I think, and we're continuing so we can deal with arguably one of the most important legacies of Hank's tenure here, and that's Elm Avenue. So thank you. Thanks everyone for coming, and yeah, feel free to leave and go enjoy the refreshment. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Hank. Oh my God. I'm photobombing and blowing it. So anyway.
I sure hope I can and have lived up to all these comments and accolades tonight. I'm overwhelmed by it. I am particularly pleased and acknowledge the support that this council and your previous councils have given me the opportunity to serve your community. Service is a big deal to me. I served, as you know, 30 years in the Navy, and I consider that a service, service to my country. And for the last nearly 23 years, hopefully I've served your community to the best of my ability. And it's been an honor to have had this privilege to work with you all, your predecessors, the citizens, and the staffs that I've had with me here in the city. I'm particularly privileged to have Chris and Russell and Juan as managers in the department, and their predecessors that have worked in the department. Without their support, without their dedication and commitment, and as a sign they handed to me a week ago, said the Hank Levine way. They tolerated the Hank Levine way, and that's largely how I was trained in the Navy. So that's the Levine way. So it's been a true pleasure and an honor for me to work with each and every one of you and work for you. It's been a privilege. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish you all well. I will say that Mr. Hall has authorized one, but I hope he'll authorize another Eagle project here in the next few months. And he did offer that if we wanted to come back, boys wanted to come back, they could continue to contribute to your city. When I first got here, there was a lot of things needed to be done. There still is a lot of things need to be done. When I was at the San Diego State University, I was going through the master's program for public administration. And one of the classes I had was talking about theories of government. And one that took me, that I took to heart, and I like to think that I try to implement that here, and that was the incrementalism, incrementally making changes. It's hard to make huge changes, and a lot of times the community won't accept huge changes. But incrementally, over time, you can make a difference. And I like to think, well, I tried to use that as my philosophy here, and I like to think it helped achieve what has been done. And I guess the last thought I would say, and I've said this to my staff, and I hope they will continue that, inspect what you expect. That was a Navy, I'm sure you know it. And that's how I run my ship and my crew here. And I think if my crew will continue to do that, my ex-crew, you'll continue to see great things. Thank you very much.
Great. So I'll say it again. Feel free. Thank you so much, Hank. Thanks, Carol, and your wonderful grandchildren. Thank you so much. And everyone else who came out. And feel free to leave and enjoy all the enjoyments. I mean, refreshments, sorry. Okay, now we have consent calendar items 2.1 to 2.4 and 2.6 to 2.9. Wait a second.
Second.
Wait, we have some public comment before that. Oh, yeah, well, you guys can do that, but then we'll do public comment. So you second it.
Yep.
We have Ginger. The public comment.
Okay.
Not fun.
Sorry. I thought you were going to talk about 2.3 first. Good evening. My name's Ginger, and I live at 1390 St. Alicia Ave, 15106, actually in Chula Vista, but I'm a part of the Tijuana Outreach Problem. I'm actually part of Stop the Poop organization, or group, if you will. So I wanted to give an update. Earlier in May, we met with the union rep of the California Border Patrol. He provided us with the video of the purple effluent coming out of the gates. So we provided that to local media, and it seems to have helped their cause and gotten them more support for the Border Patrol. We've attended the San Diego City Council meeting on May 23rd, and Barron spoke on behalf of Stop the Poop and Tijuana River Outreach. We met with Carmela Harris's office and delivered about 200 letters and postcards. We've toured Goat Canyon and Smuggler's Gulch and the Flood Control Channel. We were able to take several pictures and obtained artifacts, which were displayed at the IBWC meeting last week. We held our IBWC March last week. It was a success. Granted, it was low numbered. We did have 5 different channels, numerous interviews. I believe our cause and our concerns were well heard throughout the community. We also attended the meeting, as I had already mentioned. Again, a lot of interviews and our causes were heard, and most of our signs were aired on national or around the media and even made LA Times. We've emailed or contacted numerous people throughout the community. Victor Avina was one of them. We were able to get the letter from Admiral Lindsay regarding the impact on the Navy. We spoke with Ruth Martin earlier in the week, and again today, we're inquiring about the annual dredging for Tijuana River. We've not heard back, but supposedly it'll be sometime this fall. We're inquiring about soil testing and funding of Mexico, which we heard a little bit about earlier today, so you can kind of scratch that one out. Channel 10 had reached out to us about the $2.1 million that Senator Ben Hueso had acquired. We have discussed with other numerous groups throughout Coronado coming together about the 4-hour rapid testing of the water. I don't know if y'all have heard about that yet, but we're trying to, combine with them regarding that. We will be attending the symposium on June 10th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we continue to monitor the IBWC River Gauge and Plume Tracker. And Steve Smullen sent us the IBWC presentation that he gave on the day of the IBWC report. So not that it was the greatest, but he gave it to us. So that's all I have for that.
Thank you for that excellent report. Thank you. We have Aaron Partlow.
Partlow, 1868 Hill Street, San Diego, California, 92154. Tijuana River Valley Outreach and Stop the Poop CEO. And as you heard from her presentation, we did a successful march on IBWC. And as you know, Mr. Mayor, we've collaborated on a couple things before, and we asked for the removal or resignation of Ed Drusina. We were very vocal. We asked for the removal or resignation of Steve Smullen. And as she mentioned during his PowerPoint presentation, he demonstrated we have acronyms for IBWC, and I don't mind telling you, in bed with SELA. IB wants change, IB wants communication. Inadequate bureaucrats for the Mexican half, IB and WCM. Inadequate bureaucrats wasting constituents' money. They're responsible, as you know, for the first 1.5 miles of the border as it comes through. My next tour as a field marshal will constitute no man's land in the flood control channel and a good view of the concrete channel. And we got challenge coins issued ourselves by Border Patrol. And I think you might know why. And we attended the IBWC meeting after our march. And as Mr. Spriggs said, it was very animated. And one thing I failed to do to really drive a point home was to ask 2 questions. Is how many people, including the panel, had complete and total confidence for Mexico to do what was necessary and right in this issue? And then the other question is how many people had absolutely no confidence? But the evidence was overwhelming that not many people have much confidence in Mexico. I pledged allegiance to this flag. I always have. As you know, I was a veteran also, and this issue we're not letting go of. And as you can see, we're making progress. We got traction. Now we're going to get action. Okay. And I've been accused of making a tax on people. But as you know, Mr. Mayor, they back pumper trucks up in their city to our border, and they dump right out of pumper trucks into our canyons. Okay. I'm still going to say it. I do not support any United States funding to Mexico. We can build infrastructure on this side. We just got done seeing what the Army Corps of Engineers can do with the proper motivation and the good people that we have here. And we have the United States Navy Seabees, who we haven't addressed at all in this. They're just as good as engineers as anybody in the world. And we can get this done on this side if they don't want to cooperate. And if any funding goes to Mexico on this, shame on anybody that thinks that for not putting Americans first. But if it does, it needs 100% American oversight. 100% American oversight, supervision, and I'm talking from every penny spent to construction and operation. Thank you.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, consent. Except 2.5.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. Steve Dush. So tonight we're here to consider a consideration of a continued discussion of the relinquishment process of SR 75 here in the city of Imperial Beach. And with me tonight is Paul Morrow with Kaiser Marston Associates. And so starting off, we always try to give a little bit of the history because this has been a process that the city has looked at for quite some time. The most recent history on this is that last year in September, the governor had signed AB 1500, which enabled the city of Imperial Beach, along with the city of San Diego, to have the ability to go through the relinquishment process. Following that, we had brought to you in November of 2016 a request to engage Kaiser Marston to do a cost-benefit analysis report to analyze the costs associated if the city were to take over State Route 75. And so tonight we're going to consider a couple of different questions, and two questions to consider while Paul gives you the presentation from their vantage point, as manifest in the staff report, is why take over Highway 75, and you know, the other important consideration of that would be, can the city afford it from a financial and a legal responsibility? So those are two seminal questions to consider as Paul gives his presentation, and when Paul concludes, we'll come back and I'll complete the presentation and then open it up for any questions that we may have. So with that, I'll introduce Paul, and we're going to queue up his PowerPoint here.
Good evening. Sorry. Good evening, Mayor Dedina and members of the council. Paul Maurer with Kaiser Marston Associates, and I'm going to offer a brief presentation summarizing the study that traveled with your staff report. Mr. Dush described that we did a cost-benefit analysis. We didn't really find other examples of this type of analysis elsewhere in the state when state routes were relinquished. So it involved a certain amount of research to come about the information. The purpose of our study was to look at comparable relinquishments, estimate possible operating and maintenance expenditures that the city would incur once the road was relinquished, and then to evaluate other potential benefits, some of which are more qualitative, such as the ability for the city to control traffic, to have land use control as relates to encroachments in the roadway that are currently handled by Caltrans, and the potential to accelerate new investment and development in the corridor. So first I'll talk briefly about the existing conditions. State Route 75 runs about 1 road mile through the city, or approximately 6.06 lane miles. And the city and Caltrans have negotiated thus far a $5.3 million payment that would come from Caltrans to the city to bring the road to a state of good repair. So that would travel in conjunction with the relinquishment. Currently, Caltrans has financial and legal responsibility for the road. Caltrans maintains it and has all legal liabilities related to the road. And if those conditions remain, developers would continue to work with Caltrans on permitting and approval processes related to encroachments or any improvements in the roadway required for proposed developments. We'll talk about how in the past that's generated delays and increased costs for developers. And the Palm Avenue Master Plan, as currently conceived, cannot be fully implemented under the current ownership with Caltrans owning the road. So one of the things we did is talk to a number of brokers and developers about the existing situation, and they spoke to us very emphatically about working with Caltrans. And I think it's fair to say it's not a land use agency. It's not an agency that's structured about incentivizing development. And it's a very difficult and cumbersome process for the developers out there. And you'll see in our study that, if you probably already know this, there's a lot of small parcels on SR 75 through the city, and a lot of small property owners. And we think they're even less equipped to navigate the Caltrans process. The larger developers hire consultants specifically to deal with Caltrans and to get the necessary permits. So it was a very consistent response from the development community about that challenge. Post relinquishment, what we did was look at case studies around the state. I did want to cite for you two examples in our region, which are older. Rosecrans in the Liberty Station area, Point Loma, San Diego, and Balboa running up through Claremont were relinquished in 2001, 2005. And those were multi-year efforts. As we have a series of case studies in the study from elsewhere in the state, many of these case studies are in Northern California, where there's more of these situations where a state route runs right through the middle of town. What we found is the principal reason was never financial, or it was in spite of the financial increased cost that might be incurred by the city. It had to do with cities wanting flexibility in street design, control over traffic management, and reducing the permitting and approval process. It was control, design, aesthetic issue. Generally, cities did experience an increased O&M cost because Caltrans was removed from the equation. And in most cases, as here, the existing maintenance is at a relatively low level compared to what it would be if the city controlled it. I will jump through this slide, but just generally to say, post-relinquishment, the city controls traffic, the city controls the development encroachment process, and it's safe to argue that development could accelerate in the corridor and new investment would come more quickly. Now, a main feature of our study was to figure out what it would cost you. What we can tell is allowing for a contingency, because neither the city nor Caltrans precisely tracks this one road mile. But allowing for contingency, we think the current expenditures out there are about $73,000 a year for the 6 lane miles, about half Caltrans and half city landscaping. The city does get a portion of that reimbursed by Caltrans, but just in terms of the total outlay today, about $73,000 a year for the road to look and function like it does today. Post relinquishment, we reached the finding that O&M, high quality O&M per lane mile for this type of road is about $25,000 to $30,000 per lane mile. Again, most cities do not track individual segments like this. They maintain all the roads in their city. But where we could evaluate other relinquishment case studies, we saw their forecasts of what their O&M would be, and including more in your SR 75 corridor trends. And then we did the same for sales tax. And we made some projections going forward that are based on the theory that development would occur more rapidly and or at a higher rate of escalation. And if you look at the ingredients of our assumptions, we think they're relatively conservative, but our purpose was to show a delta. So on this slide, we give you the incremental tax revenues that we're forecasting really on an illustrative basis. So for example, in year 10, we're saying at a higher rate of growth in property tax and at a higher rate of absorption of new commercial space, so therefore more sales tax sooner, the post-relinquishment scenario would yield 154,000 more tax revenue per year from this corridor in year 10. So I'm just picking year 10, and by year 20, 410,000 more. The purpose of our study then was to sort of weigh that against the increased cost, and our general finding is that it take about 10 years to stimulate enough added tax revenue above and beyond the current growth curve to a higher growth curve to fully offset the increased O&M that you would be about to incur. And then finally, we discussed some of the alternative approaches to financing. Our focus here was primarily on the O&M burden, but also on the capital facility cost as you choose to upgrade the road and possibly to implement the Palm Avenue Master Plan. Not all these costs have to come directly from the general fund. There's other options that are available to you, some of which could be exactions from developers or imposition on property owners or seeking grants from SANDAG and other sources. That's a quick summary of our study, and happy to respond to any questions or comments once the presentation is complete.
Thank you for that concise but excellent summary. And I guess we'll open up. Do you have an additional?
Yeah, just a couple more points to augment that, if I may. So again, those two questions that we had posed earlier is, the why. That's way we always try to start the reasons about why to do something like this. And so the graph that Paul had put together within the report is really data rich here. It just really summarizes this whole process along with the numbers that he had provided. And so this graph, if there's anything to take away from the report that Paul had done, not that it's all not great work, Paul, but this graph right here really shows the existing condition and the post condition, and that really summarizes the why. So then the second question is really the money issue. And as Paul had indicated, throughout the research that he had done, that we had done as staff, the primary reason that most places do relinquishment is for the land use control aspect of it. And so, we kind of did something a little bit different because finances in Imperial Beach are really important, and we wanted to be eyes wide open walking into something like this to find out, does this make sense financially for us? And so one of the things that this does allow us to do is if indeed you all have give the city manager the recommendation to move forward with this, is that it allows the city to take a look at and be thoughtful about what that one lump sum distribution would do to offset any existing liabilities and be smart about how we do our financing. Not unlike the presentation that Doug had given at your last meeting or so about the SWOT analysis, really taking a look at some of our strengths, our weaknesses, and our opportunities. And this could be an opportunity. So the recommendation for moving forward here is to receive this and to authorize the city manager to pursue relinquishment and work with the California Department of Transportation and the CTC. And just as a matter of sort of just cleanup and mechanics, this is not the last time that the city council would see this. If you authorize the city manager, he would then convey to Caltrans, who we've been working with throughout this entire process, yes, please include us in your 2018 budget preparation to identify the $5.3 million. Caltrans, once they receive that, they will prepare two more reports. It is a relinquishment agreement and a finalized project report. Those two things would come before you. You would then, consider them again. If you made a recommendation to accept those and approve relinquishment, that would go back to Caltrans. It would then go to the California Transportation Commission, and they would yield a final decision. So that's the process. And with that, we would conclude our presentation.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Mr. Spriggs.
Thanks for the presentation, Paul and Steve. Thank you very much. We've been sort of like a bee buzzing around this honey for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, something like that, even before the Palm Avenue Master Plan. But really from that point where that study took place, and we saw very clearly the incompatibility between what would be done under the Palm Avenue Master Plan changes and what Caltrans would allow. There were just some things that were unallowable that we would have to consider this. So I have like 3 basic questions around that framework. One, we sort of assume we're going to do this in large part because of the ability to implement the Palm Avenue Master Plan, and the higher end of the annual maintenance estimate is based on the Palm Avenue Master Plan essentially being built out. What gives us the sense that we are going to be able to afford the build out? Because there's a lot of infrastructure change that will be needed on Palm Avenue, including if we do the side roads and the island and other basic changes. And maybe you could just remind us how those are going to be financed so that we can get a sense as to whether and if and how long it will take to actually come up with that scenario to determine whether this analysis really is realistic. Let me just ask the other 2.
Oh, sure.
We can remember them. The other 2 have to do with Caltrans' own reasons for relinquishing this. They have to have their reasons. It has to make economic sense to them to do this. And for them to agree to give us $5.3 million means that's what which represents I guess a 10-year cost program or analysis. I'd like some clarification on that, what that 5.3 represents, and why our costs on our side seem way lower than what they're providing us in terms of the 5.3. So I'm not quite sure I understand that. I read through the document very quickly, the Caltrans document, and I didn't understand a lot of what was in there in terms of how they came up with their numbers. Maybe you could help out. And then finally, your last point, Paul, or one of your last points about the 10 years to offset the maintenance cost to get to the point where we're breaking even with the maintenance cost. I wanted you to explain a little bit more about what the revenue assumptions are, where the revenue would be coming from that's going to provide that offset. So those are the 3 questions that I had.
Okay, maybe I can take a stab at the first 2, and then we'll ask Paul to augment the 3rd one if I mess it up too much. The first one is the funding for how we would implement the Palm Avenue Master Plan. So there are a variety of different ways on how to get that funded. One of the first elements would be the relinquishment, because as you had indicated, the ability to implement those segments. Primarily, there are 3 phases of the Palm Avenue Master Plan. There's the western, the central, and then the eastern. So we'll just call them 1, 2, 3 from left to right, west to east. The westernmost one, the first segment, is the least constrained in terms of what those requirements would be to meet existing Caltrans requirements. We could actually adhere to and fit within the existing right-of-way that design. Now, the funding for that, not unlike the funding that has come for the Palm Avenue Master Plan, which y'all approved the 30% construction drawings, in which we have a grant for 100% construction drawings for the western edge of that, we would also be actively seeking grants to fund the construction of that. In addition to that, we would look at development applications. Let's see, I don't know if Esteen is still here, but he had mentioned during his fond speech to Hank, the thing that he wouldn't forgive him for was the relinquishment segment along the Palm Avenue or along 9th and Palm. That 9th and Palm project adheres to our Palm Avenue master plan. So as developments come in, developers would, as we have identified, a planning document with an ability to construct that, because we have 30% construction drawings for the whole thing, and 100% being produced right now for the western segment. Those development exactions could be had upon development applications. So we have grant opportunities, we have development applications. We also had cited in one of Paul's slides the ability to do improvement districts or whatnot. So there are a variety of funding mechanisms that could be utilized in order to fund. It's unlikely that any community, whether it's IB or even larger communities with more means, would improve a corridor like SR 75 to a design that the Palm Avenue master plan contemplates from general fund dollars. It would again come through grants, which we've again been very successful in getting for the design and the planning aspects of Palm Avenue. It would come from development applications along that corridor, and it could also come from various funding districts. The second question that you had
Hey,
is,
Steve, before
yeah.
he asked one other question on part one, I think it was appropriate. You're right. Right now, I think that the study contemplates that higher end being as if it were there today. The build out of the Palm Avenue master plan is going to take a lot of years, probably more than the decade. And I think that was the point you were making, is that if we were to use that high end maintenance number, it's probably a little bit very conservative, because we wouldn't be at that high maintenance number to begin with. Probably would be a decade down the road. So that, I think that was part of your question. So I wanted to point.
Right, especially as you look at, the expenditures per year. I think it's kind of built into the model that, a little bit into the model that Paul described.
So the second question that you had asked is, why would Caltrans want to relinquish this segment of road, and how did we arrive at that $5.3 million? So as I understand it, and this actually predates me a little bit, when the initiation of the project summary report was submitted to Caltrans, I think that our engineer's estimate, because we had worked with a consultant to identify what we thought it would take to get that road, what's called in a state of good repair. So what they do is that they identify some of the existing deficiencies and some of the elements that would be needed in order to bring that road up to standards as of today. So our consultant had identified initially about $7.2 million, and Caltrans had identified $700,000. So that's where the discussion and the negotiation had started. Those were the brackets. So through a series of negotiations and evaluation of a lot of the engineering conditions of the existing roadway system, including but not limited to the stormwater, the existing the pavement condition, the subgrades, the crosswalks, the landscape medians, and all those elements, and all of that is, I think, embodied within that report that you may have seen. So you go back and forth and you identify some things that our consultant had identified could not be included in their estimate, because either as a state, they wouldn't have to do it, so they couldn't identify that charge as we had identified in the initial $7.3 million. Or there were elements that, like any other process, it is maybe we had identified a Cadillac standard where they have a Chevy. So again, through that process, we had realized the $5.3 million to bring that road into a ready state.
And we don't have to do that. Well, so we wouldn't have to spend on that, or is that embedded in the implementation of the Palm Avenue?
That is correct. So that's precisely the thinking behind this. Is so they would need to make the $5.3 million worth of improvements to bring that road to a condition, I can't remember the exact term, but a fair condition or a ready state of roadway. But rather than do that, because of our desire to implement the Palm Avenue master plan and the inability because of the standards that they have, it's a much smarter approach to say, okay, let's use that $5.3 million and use that as leverage for matching funds for grants and through the other development process to get those improvements that would otherwise be necessary. They can be as a part of the improvement of that Palm Avenue master plan. So
Yeah.
that's when you get the sidewalks and the crosswalks and the landscaping and all those other elements that would come a part of that. So that would meet that standard.
Councilman Spriggs, maybe to expand on just what he's saying, Caltrans gave us the option of, hey, we'll come in and build the road. We'll come in and redo everything that needs to be done on the road, and we'll spend 5.3 million, or we can give you the money in lieu of us doing the work. And since we were going to be doing the Palm Avenue master plan and we didn't want Caltrans to implement Caltrans standards, we wanted to implement our standards. The money is a better option for us. But again, like you say, it's going to take several years to make those improvements. They're going to happen over a decade in time, but Caltrans gave us the option. We'll fix it up now to our standards, or we'll give you a check, and over time you can fix it up to your standards. That's great.
Yeah, the third question I'm going to punt over to Paul.
Thank you. You were asking about the revenue offsets and how we came up with those estimates. So in our report, we try to look at the recurring annual expenditures to the city and potential recurring annual revenue to the city and how they match up, right? Just give you a little context. The expenditures, we're surprised how little data is out there, but we did ultimately come to that conclusion of 25 to 30,000 per lane mile. On the revenue side, we had to hypothesize about an improved level of development and value and the consequences for property tax and for sales tax. So I definitely characterize that as illustrative, but let me walk through just some of the key assumptions. So in both pre and post relinquishment, we assume that Breakwater Phase 1 is completed and they pay their property tax and they generate sales tax. And we assume that Hampshire at Bayside Landing is also completed and they start paying their very nice and dense property tax. Yeah, I know, right? So those are happening now, whether there's a relinquishment or not. Then just to give you some context, the last 5 years, city sales tax citywide has gone up 4.2% average per year. SR 75, when we drew a polygon around it, flat, minus 0.1%. So we've got 5 years of no growth in sales tax in SR 75 corridor. We used sales tax forecast of 2%, both pre and post relinquishment. So we use a 2% annual increase for the forecast for sales tax, but we assumed a higher pace of absorption post relinquishment. And what we did is we prepared a market study for you in 2010 as part of the commercial zoning update, and we forecasted 20 years of retail absorption for your entire commercial zone, which is primarily here, but also Seacoast and Old Palm and 13, right? Mm-hmm. And we said 75% of that is really going to happen here, and we assumed twice as much would happen post relinquishment than pre. It's not big numbers. It's 2,500 square feet per year pre-relinquishment absorption forecast and 5,000 square feet per year post. So over 20 years is 100,000. Yeah, per year. Yeah. So in the case of sales tax, 2% growth both before and after, but a higher level of absorption. Just a guesstimate plugged into our model. On the property tax side, citywide, these are very interesting factors that the corridors lag so far beyond the city. Citywide, 5.4% annual rate of growth for 5 years. This corridor, SR 75, 2.6% annual rate of growth. Now, the quick answer is, well, citywide, you have housing, and housing changes value quickly because homes sell, right? And this commercial zone, you don't get that kind of jump in property tax because sales are less frequent. You don't get assessed value growth. But what we did for property tax, we used a 2.5% growth rate pre-relinquishment and a 3.5% post-relinquishment. So even though we say these are very much illustrative forecasts to try to get to a delta, what the potential delta might be, we think they're fairly conservative in terms of we didn't, expand the inputs to get to a huge delta.
that $5.3 million would come to our general fund, and then we would have the ability to figure out how to best make that lump sum work for the city. There's a variety of different ways that the city could take a look at any existing liabilities and maybe offset those, pay those down, and still come up with a revenue stream that could pay for existing improvements along the corridor. So again, maybe Andy wants to speak a little bit more to that detail, but again, that it's not necessarily restricted. Caltrans would provide that 5.3 million and say, here you go, city, and we are done. It is yours now. I'll defer to Andy, but there's an overall sort of strategy that could be utilized.
I guess I'm a little concerned about Brown Act or just agenda. We were talking about future spending of some lump sum that's not kind of related to this. I just want to make sure we're not getting in uncharted waters here. And
If it's related to State Route 75, I think you're fine. If you're
Okay.
talking about other things that you're going to spend it on,
that's fine.
anything
That's
under
why I
the
want to make
general
sure we don't go
fund,
into that.
then
area.
that would
Yeah.
be a separate discussion.
Okay, that's all. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. What we would do is we'd make sure that we would take that $5.3 million and use it in the most effective way possible. There are some ways that are less effective than others. We could put it, for instance, in a bank account. Problem we have when the city has to put cash in a bank account, we typically draw less than 1% interest. So I think your point is, and I think it's well taken, that if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that we maximize and leverage that $5.3 million in the most efficient way possible to make it grow so that we can continue to maintain this road in the long term. I think that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Escalate. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we did run right here. We did run an escalating expenditure. We had it running out to, I'll do the non-Palm Avenue master plan. So 114 we have it escalating at 3%, and we're comparing it to that incremental tax revenue, and the incremental tax revenue clears the increased expense at year 10. And at the high end, the 144 with that escalating compared to the incremental tax revenue around year 13. So we ran a series where we did escalate the cost, and our conclusion was from the low of no palm master plan to the high of yes palm master plan takes between 10 and 15 years for a crossover. So again, it's an illustrative projection of incremental tax revenue offset against the estimate of O&M, with that O&M escalating as you get. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow, thank you for your presentation. Seems like Imperial Beach always gives you an interesting task, and you always come out shining well. Thank you. To me, this issue is about land use control for the city of Imperial Beach. And I think that we've heard from our development community historically that for a business that's located on SR 75, that it's hard to do business with Caltrans there. And so I think what happens is that we've had some developers, we've had some businesses wanting to improve, and they've been told the Caltrans standard, and they just kind of walk away from the project. So to me, that's very disheartening for a community that really wants to improve and move forward and launch into, our own. The fact that there's an added benefit here of a revenue pot that we haven't seen is extremely intriguing to me. City of Imperial Beach always has to look for the opportunity in every project that comes our way or in every situation. That this is something that we can really look at and see the benefits of it. And Mr. Hall, I know that you and Assistant City Manager Dush, and I'm sure Mr. Bradley all sat down and looked at, how we could benefit from this. Mr. Spriggs, you raised some good points. Is okay, we've got this money. How are we going to spend it? More importantly, how are we going to invest this for the future of our community? And that would be the business community. Mr. Mara, I did have some questions though on one of your slides, and that dealt with, I think, some of the revenues, potential revenue streams. Might be your second to the last slide. And there were, I think you had listed some lighting districts, some business improvement districts. I believe they're already there. I know there's a business improvement district, and those businesses pay into that. I'm not sure how far up the lighting district goes. That's already in place as well. And if our city attorney could weigh in on Proposition 218 and how that would impact any future districts in that area. What was intriguing to me, though, would be the reimbursement agreements, and maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit, because I'm not sure what you meant by that there.
Certainly. Okay, and so we're on slide 17, exactly that you're referring to. So the task here was to look at other people's money to help pay for maintenance and or to pay for the facility upgrade. As developers come forward and propose developments, you may have the ability to negotiate either for them to build a portion of your Palm master plan and or for them to incur some maintenance responsibility. So an example of maintenance would be simply there's a park-like esplanade, linear park kind of walkway in front of their property, and it's of significant size that they're going to maintain it, and it's efficient for them to do so. That's an opportunity. The reimbursement agreement is where they've implemented something above and beyond what could be associated with the requirement of their development, and they're going to get reimbursed as you collect payments from future developers. So that's just a typical exaction. When developer advances an entire segment of a project above and beyond what's associated with their property, you collect those exactions from future developers.
Councilwoman Bragg, if I could make, as an example, for instance, 9th and Palm. They've implemented a portion of our Palm Avenue master plan. And not only was it now their burden to put in the landscaping and everything, they will also be maintaining that. So again, I think we're looking at the worst case scenario as if the city was going to put in all of the improvements and maintain all the improvements. I believe that there will be opportunities such as these or others where the improvements will be made by applicants and also some of the maintenance will be conducted by property.
Thank you for that. So do we have any concern at all that with these different developers that our master plan is done in a, I just want to make sure that it's not done in a hopscotch kind of course, that will depend on development that comes forward to us. I just want to make sure that we have some assurances that it's not going to be, exactly. And then my other question, Mr. Dush, is the status of the city of San Diego and their relinquishment process, and how well is that going to marry in with what we're doing, and what happens in the worst case scenario is that the city of San Diego doesn't keep their portion of this in as maintained as well as we do. And what leverage do we have? Obviously we can't tell them what to do, but
Well, actually, we can tell them what to do. They just may not do it. But in all seriousness, thanks for the question, because we have, as recently as this week, I've had contact with the city of San Diego and their public works department. We as a staff, our public works department, our planning staff, as well as our counterparts at the city of San Diego had sat down because they were very interested in the process that we had worked through with Caltrans. And it's my understanding that they're in that process as well. And they were very interested in the report that Paul and his firm had put together. It's also, so as I understand it, they are moving forward and looking at doing a very similar sort of process. In terms of the planning and how we coordinate with them, when they were going through, they had done a very similar study to our Palm Avenue master plan, not in depth as the engineering. But one of the things that we actually, because we had attended their open house about a year and a half ago, and then following that, we sat down with them and their engineers and worked on making sure that that transition between Imperial Beach and San Diego was reconciled. And so we actually have a plan for that sort of seamless transition into their plan. So that would work. It's also my understanding that the city of Coronado is also looking at the relinquishment of SR 75 as well.
After causing us considerable pain and numerous phone calls to Sacramento, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, they're opting back in. So
somewhere around 2016. But in any event, so we are definitely working with our counterparts in the city of San Diego and offering them input on what we had done, maybe what in hindsight, which is always more clear, what we could have done differently, and again want to partner with them. And again, I think that we definitely do have in place a sort of engineering sort of solution for that transition as to where we butt up against them.
Just have one last comment to Mr. Morrow. I found that your comments about the sales tax on this portion of SR 75 and then the property values on this portion were absolutely amazing. So if we can help if our businesses can improve, and I mean, it only helps them as well. But if that can help increase our sales tax. So I view this again as creating land use control, but also an opportunity for our businesses and ourselves financially. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. West.
Just one quick question on your Mr. Mara. It's fantastic. I mean, really, helped me literally put this into perspective, and I really appreciate it. On your plan for you did with the years out to 20 years, did that include a economic downturn or?
No, sir. It just takes a straight 3% per year.
Okay.
For the expenses and the revenue projections that I described earlier.
Okay.
So obviously, life is more of a roller coaster, but it just does a straight line rate of growth.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then one thing I always look at with 9th and Palm, it's such a beautiful project. It's ready to be opening up here. But if it wasn't for Caltrans, that project might even be better. I mean, Caltrans really was, I remember when I was sitting on the successor agency, they really made it difficult on Sudbury, and that Caltrans has really handcuffed our entire community in many ways and put what I would call a gash through our community, which does not allow our north and south communities an easy way to get across. It doesn't allow businesses to grow. And I'm tired of sending people driving through, tell them to go through Coronado to come visit because it's so bad. I think this is going to be a challenge for us. We are a little city to manage this road, but I think it's the right thing to do for all better for our community and our businesses.
Thank you. Thanks for the analysis. I really enjoy seeing really good qualitative and quantitative analysis. I would say the term to describe the zero increase in sales tax is actually jaw dropping because it really is negative growth. It's actually, you guys do this for a living, but it almost seems to me almost unheard of. And because, you're talking about downturn, we've actually experienced some pretty robust economic growth in Imperial Beach and nationally and statewide. We're in the most economically vibrant state in the world, basically. And we have an economic corridor that is not generating any value. It's actually losing value. So that only accentuates the need to do this only because state control of that route is a disincentive to investment and, more importantly, job creation, and even just having abilities, have the capacity to invest and grow their businesses, so and produce revenue. So anyway, just alone for the reason, I saw something one day, and I've probably talked about it before, but it was a gentleman in a wheelchair that was rolling backwards, double amputee. A guy in the Navy got out before I was at 9th and Palm. They push him across the intersection because it's like this. And so it's just an unsafe corridor. We don't have a single crosswalk that's painted between Saturn and Rainbow. One, it's actually at where the McDonald's is. But they only did one side. They only allowed them to do one side. They didn't do all of it. So This is really smart public policy. It's a great deal for taxpayers and a great deal for the business community, and it makes sense, and we have the numbers to prove it. So for all those reasons, it's really good public policy in government at its best in terms of the justification. So that's it.
I didn't have a chance to opine one way or the other about how I felt about the project. So I think overall it makes a lot of sense based on the analysis that's been presented tonight. And, you know, we all have our Caltrans horror stories. And I remember this council struggled with 2 Caltrans reps on a couple different occasions before you were mayor about speed limit on Palm Avenue, coming in from the 65-mile-an-hour zone and into our inhabited parts of Route 75. They just insisted that they were not going to drop the speed limit. And all of us argued strenuously with them as to the reasons why in terms of public safety and the desires of this city council. They did not care. So that was, to me, a strong piece of evidence that, and plus what everyone has said about the problems that any investor or developer has had with trying to build on a Cal State right of way. I think that the fact that this corridor has been a loser in the sense financially is something we have to pay attention to on the positive side, not just the relinquishment. It's not going to automatically happen. We need, I think, the Palm Avenue master plan didn't really emphasize a lot regarding economic development and what kinds of things would be needed to stimulate investment on the corridor, i.e. reconsider zoning, reconsider easier rules regarding consolidating those small little lots along there, etc. This is the next phase that we as a council should really take responsibility for, is because we're all impressed with the lack of growth and revenue from that area. What will it take beyond the Palm Avenue Master Plan physical plan to provide an economic foundation for investment and growth there? If we're going to, take on this responsibility, we may as well do it full hog and do a good job. So I just say that's something we need to be thinking about going down the road. And we also need to make sure that that $5.3 million doesn't get stuck in the general fund at negative interest rates or near negative, or certainly negative inflation rate. Maybe we need to create a special fund for it that since it's not IB taxpayers' money per se, maybe we can avoid the kinds of conservative policies that already drain our resources because of inflation being higher than our rate of return on our general fund cash balance. So those are things I think we ought to be looking at, and I'm for approving the report and moving forward to the next step.
You want to make a motion to approve?
I would like to move that we approve.
Right.
Second.
Great. So with that, the motion is to authorize the city manager to pursue the relinquishment process with the necessary entities, including but not limited to the California Department of Transportation and the California Transportation Commission, with the objective of having SR 75 relinquished. Great. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. I'm going to recuse myself for a few minutes for 4.1 so I can eat. I'm about ready to pass out from hunger. I should have eaten before we got here. So anyway, and Mayor Pro Tem Bragg will take over. Oh, yeah. Thanks. I'll be back. I shall return.
I would like to declare the public hearing open, and this is on public hearing item 4.1, resolution number 2017-7813, adopting an amendment to the Transnet Local Street Improvement Program of projects for fiscal years 2017 through 2021. Mr. Helmer, thank you. If you will proceed.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is categorized as routine business. You've seen one of these before. It's the public hearing to adopt Amendment number 6 to our 2016 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This is the program that has Sandag dollars that allows us to do improvements to our streets. Sandag gave us an updated forecast for our revenue, which we have to distribute among our projects in it. And it's all based on our 2016 pavement assessment report. And I've included on this map the list of streets that are included in our RTIP program in the city. This resolution will authorize our finance director to appropriate these funds in our program, update it, and then submit it to Sandag. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer, but I think you've seen these before.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you have any speaker slips on this item?
No, I do not.
Thank
Not at this time, Mayor Pro Tem.
None. So moved. Second.
Motion carried by the following vote: ayes, Bragg, West, Patton, Spriggs. Mayor Dedina absent.
Bear with me while I- Okay. Move on.
We could do 5.2, right? Yeah, we'll just do 5.2.
We are doing.
All right. Well, I'm excited about this one too, but I'll be excited to go back to 5.1 too. 5.2 is a resolution to award a public works contract for the landscape in the Bicentennial Triangle. That's the piece of triangle landscaping with the City of Imperial Beach sign as you turn down from State Route 75 down onto Palm Avenue. We were given a Cal American grant, and so we had some RTAP funds to prepare a design for landscape improvements. And actually, we've got it right here. Back in 2016, we had a landscape architect come and present this landscape improvement proposal for City Council, and you provided feedback, and we moved forward with designs on this project. We prepare the final designs and advertise for bids in April of this year. We unfortunately only got one contractor to bid on this project, which was really surprising because this was advertised at the same time as our alley improvement project and the same time as the other one you're approving, the sports lot tot lot improvement project. So we met with the owner of the company, who was Blue Pacific Engineering, to review and to try to value engineer his proposal, because it came in a bit high, and he gave us a revised proposal, which we thought was more reasonable to construct the improvements on the Bicentennial Triangle improvement project. So In order to move forward with this project, the staff recommends to award the contract to Blue Pacific Engineering, and then we're going to have to authorize a budget appropriation of $218,021 from unallocated RTCAP funds. That's the funds dedicated specifically for State Route 75 to move forward with these improvements on the project. This project is a very visible centerpiece of our city. It's an important component to the improvements that are going on at the 9th and Palm development with the important pedestrian access and benches and other improvements that will help accent that project. So it's staff recommendations to approve this and to move forward with this project. You also have an option to reject the single bid, but then we'd have to go back and revise the design some and hopefully get a lower bid in the future. The way that contracts are coming in, a lot of our projects are actually coming in slightly higher. So it wasn't too surprising to see this project come in slightly higher. So with that, I'll be here to answer some questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. You
Yeah,
have a
Madam
comment?
Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The other thing I wanted to point out is some of you know that the RTCAP funds can only be used on SR 75, and really this is pretty much the only eligible project along that stretch of road. Because again, the road's not ours yet; it's still a state road. And I think all of you also know if we don't use these funds, they actually get taken and used in other communities. So we certainly want to take advantage of those, and that's where this funding is coming from, not from the general fund. So I think you knew that, but I wanted to make sure the public understood.
Thank you for the clarification. Colleagues, any comments? Mr. Patton?
Thanks for clarifying that, Mr. Hall. Those funds, I guess I was more concerned of 5.1. So, but I guess my question is, usually our estimates are pretty close, and this bid was quite a bit higher, and we only had one person bidding. What was the big difference when you guys do your estimates and that you were over $200,000 off? Is it because my question is this contractor so busy he feels he could charge a lot, and is that why? Or
well, I can say we followed up with the some of the other bidders that bidded on the 8 alley improvement project and asked them, why did you not put a bid on this project? And a lot of the contractors, they want to do street work. They didn't want to do landscaping work. Landscaping work has a little more detail to it. It's laying pipe and it's irrigation. It's a fair amount of subcontracting work that are, I guess, the typical contractors who bid on our project weren't willing to bid at this time. Plus, there's quite a bit of work going on right now, and there just wasn't interest at this time on it. And so if we did pull this back and we redesign the project, that I'm not necessarily that confident we'd actually get a better bid on it at this moment.
And if I could add to that, we looked at what items were really out of whack and which ones were high. And it seemed like there were really two that were very high. One was the irrigation system. And so we had him take a look at the irrigation system. And again, because we want to do this all drip irrigation, it becomes very labor intensive because you don't just put a sprinkler and it sprays. You have to put one to every plant. And then we did two other things. One, we wanted some plants that were more mature. So we ordered plants that were pretty mature. And so what we asked them to do is cut back a little bit on the maturity. So they'll grow in, but we were having, most of even the shrubs were 5-gallon shrubs. Those were pretty big shrubs. So those were pretty expensive. And then what we also have done is we included some electricity in this parcel that hasn't been there before, because through the years we have lit the trees for different events, whether that might be for the holidays or maybe it's for the 4th of July or something like that. So we wanted to have the electricity in here should the council choose to wrap the palms or do something, more festive in this area. And that added a little bit of cost to the project, but we do think that those are pretty wise investments for the future. So this area is well used and whatnot. But those were some, as I remember, those were the ones that were kind of high.
okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions, comments? Yes.
Mr. Helmer, if you could put up the slide that has the legends on it. Okay, as I'm looking at this, I do not see the El Camino Real bell. Is that going to be retained?
Yes, that was a specific line item to retain.
Okay,
And
thank you.
we took that comment back from your last input
Okay.
on this project. This is
That was placed there by the Imperial Beach Women's Club, so. I didn't want them upset with me. And I really do want to thank you for paying it. You know, like I said in a previous comment, we really do need to look to the future. So by including the potential for electricity there, which is, you know, and I know that in the past, a long time ago, we hadn't made those decisions. And, you know, years later would say, gee, it would be nice to light this. You know, we should have then. It's much more expensive to do it afterward than when you're at this process. Mr. Hammer, and that bus stop is also a relocation of an existing bus stop, is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, did you want to talk about that at all?
The bus stop will be included as part of the Palm Avenue master plan. We're not putting the bus stop in this time, from my understanding on it. But as soon as we move forward with some of the Palm Avenue master plan, then that bus stop will be relocated. But we have worked with MPS, and they have been agreeable to relocate the bus stop to this triangle location.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that this accomplishes is that it's a great complement to the Ninth and Palm project. So it starts to relocate in people's mind where our center city is. So we're taking Triangle Park, which is totally underutilized. In the words of a very wise man who's my grandson, years ago said, ma'am, there's not, is that a park? There's not even a bench over there. So that we're finally accomplishing some of these, you know, taking some of these totally underutilized pieces of our community and turning them into gathering spots. And again, starting to expand on Palm Avenue and hopefully starting to increase property values over there. So I think it's a great project, and I would certainly move, if there's no other comments, I would certainly move the item.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. So with that, please vote to adopt resolution number 2017-7814, awarding Public Works contract for construction of the Bicentennial Triangle Landscape Improvements Project and appropriating an additional $218,021 from unallocated RTCPI funds to the project budget. Please vote. I kind of did it back.
Motion carried.
I didn't come up on my screen.
Mr. Mayor, can we have an oral vote, please? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by the following votes. Ayes, Patton, West, Bragg, Dedina, absent, Spriggs.
Thank you. Now we're on item 5.1, is that correct? Item 5.1, resolution, and thank you for taking over for me so I didn't pass out from hunger. Resolution number 2017-7816, awarding Public Works contract for construction of the 8-alley paving project and appropriating an additional $233,000 from unallocated gas tax funds to the project budget. Assistant Public Works Director Helmer will give the report.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is the one I'm really excited about. This is a continuation of our alley improvements in the city. This is another great project we're going to have going on. In November 2015, you provided direction to the Public Works Department to work as fast as we can to prepare the design plan, the specs to get this project bid out. Design plans were prepared in April 2017. We bid the project shortly thereafter. We had 5 contractors bid on the project. The lowest most qualified bid was from PAL General Engineering, who was the exact contractor who we did the first 14 alley improvement projects. So we're going to have the same project manager from PAL working on this project that gets approved. So the recommendation from staff is to award the contract to PAL and to accept the additive bid item. There's one additive bid item on here to include alley number 5 in it, and then to authorize an appropriation of additional funds of $233,000 from unallocated gas tax dollars towards this project to complete this work.
And maybe I can explain that a little bit. When we brought this to you probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, you wanted us to look at one additional alley, and if there was money in the project to go ahead and finish that additional alley. By adding the 233, we can get that other alley in there, and we think that just makes sense. There's some economies of scale for doing it now, so that's why we're proposing.
Questions, comments? I just wanted to thank, really, it was, well, Mr. Patton and Mayor Pro Tem Bragg, you were on the council to really get this project going. And it's arguably one of the most impactful things the city's ever done for folks who literally felt ignored. And I think it's an issue of, there's so many things to discover, whether it's environmental services, or reducing stormwater, genius, providing access for disabled folks who live in those alleys. And it's really a social justice issue in the sense that we're really finally making sure that everyone's treated equal in our city. And I didn't mention one of the accomplishments Hank did, but the alleys were a big part of that. And it's brilliant, just thinking strategically about how to improve people's lives and neighborhoods, and people who really have felt forgotten. So this is great. I love this council to think about additional alleys. I know folks in, what's the neighborhood my dad lives in? What's it called? Is it? Okay, Seaside Park. I thought it was Imperial Beach Heights or something. I'm not sure what it was. I never knew the name of the neighborhood I grew up in. But anyway, and to think about that, because there's a stormwater component to that. But anyway, so I want to thank this council and our staff and Mr. Levine for really undertaking that. It's really, really a great project. So I know the folks over there, but throughout Alley 37 and Alley 17, I didn't know we named them, but I will be very happy about it, or numbered them. So with that, please vote. I guess I have to read it out. So we're voting on resolution number 2017-7816. I'm sorry? Do you have a comment?
I do. I'm wondering if I have a conflict of interest on that because it looks like alley 17.
You don't own the property, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Awarding Public Works contract for construction of the 8 alley paving project and appropriating an additional $233,000 from unallocated gas tax funds to the project budget. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Spriggs absent.
All right, some really important stuff this evening. Thank you. Pleasure to see real work getting done. 5.3, resolution number 2017-7815, awarding Public Works contract for construction of the sports park tot lot project and appropriating an additional $100,000 of the project budget. Assistant Public Works Director Helmer, we give the report.
Hi, Mayor and Council. This is the last contract we're asking you to award, Public Works contract you to award. And this is for the sports park tot lot. This is a project we've been working on probably for the last 2 years on it, on and off. The tot lot here is pictured on your screen. It's fallen apart, needs improvement, needs ADA access to it. And this contract, this project was authorized in the 2-year CAP budget back in June 2015. The design was reviewed with the Sports Park Committee, or the Parks and Rec Committee, and we did a couple of iterations with them. And then when they authorized their city engineer to prepare the design plan, the specification, they go out for bid. That was prepared in April of this year. We bid the project at the same time as these other 2 projects just authorized. We had 6 contractors bid on this project. The lowest qualified bid came from R.E. Schultz Construction. We reviewed the bid, and it meets all the qualifications and it seems reasonable. It is staff's recommendation to award the contract to R.E. Schultz. There was an additive bid item on here to replace a section of the deteriorating brick wall that's adjacent to the sports park, and we recommend that that additive bid item be included in this work. And then we ask that you also transfer already allocated funds in the park budget that's dedicated in FY17 for the parks restroom, which is not going to be completed under this fiscal year. Will have to be reallocated in the year anyways towards this project in order to keep moving this work forward and get ourselves a new sports park or a new sports park lot. So with that, I'll answer any questions specifically you have on this item and on this contract.
Thank you. Mr. Helmers, describe the most notable difference that the community would see in this project. And then the block wall, is that the one that's in the lower right-hand corner? It looks like it's about 3 courses high. How much higher will that be, or what's the change to that?
So the block wall that you see in the lower right-hand corner will be replaced as similar materials. If you look at it, it's all kind of eroding. It's kind of like the adobe brick. The notable change you're going to be seeing on here is the entire surfacing area is going to be that rubberized matting. The grass perimeter where you see a mow strip right now, that's going to be an extended seating wall that goes around the perimeter of the entire playground area. So parents or other people can just sit around as their kids are playing on the play structure. Those are the two notable enhancements. Other than that, the play structure is intended to serve the same age. It's like 2 to 12 years. We tried to maximize the age range on it. The swings will look very similar to what has been there before. And the play structure will have like the same features other than to be more modernized equipment.
Thank you. I think it's noteworthy that the change in the surface of the playground will now accommodate people with disabilities. So I am extremely pleased to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Pat.
I've played on that structure quite a bit myself when my kids were toddlers, and if I recall, was there a little bridge, a walking bridge on? Is that going to still be there?
Yeah, they'll have some type of bridge linking feature.
Okay, I'm in. Okay, thank you.
Can't say enough how great this is. Little things to make a huge difference, and just alone having the ability to have family members and parents and friends sit and watch their kids and interact with their kids is really, really important. Just like all of you, my mom and my wife and I sat in our city's tot lots for hours watching our kids playing and crawling through them. So it's really important. And then I just want to congratulate the city staff and then this council for a lot of drama going on and lots of city governments and lots of talking and proclaiming, but we're getting work done, real work that makes the difference in people's lives. And that's really, really inspiring to me to see that, and the consensus building and the collaborative effort and the multi-purpose way that we think about these projects. So it's really government at its best. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this, because really great, really good. We did some big stuff tonight that really makes a difference, and little difference in the lives of little people that are the most important assets we have. So great. So with that, adopt resolution number 2017-7815, awarding Public Works contract for construction of the sports park tot lot project and appropriating an additional $100,000 to the project budget. Is there a motion?
Second.
Please vote. Oh my God, I forgot. We're not done.
Motion carried
Oh.
unanimously by those
Sorry,
present.
I forgot about the brigantine.
Spriggs
I
absent.
know you're getting a little worried over there. All right, now we have item 2.5, and that's resolution number 2017-7819, consenting to improvements within the public right-of-way to facilitate outdoor dining for the Brigantine at 919 Seacoast Drive and authorizing related actions. Mr. Dish will give the report.
Just while he's getting set up, I did have a chance to talk to Councilman Spriggs today, who pulled it off the agenda. I only talked to him for a few minutes. But one of the things he wanted to pull it off for was he had heard some rumors about what was or what was not going into that building. And so he wanted to be one of the first ones to, again, welcome you and congratulate you on being part of Imperial Beach, and wanted to kind of put some rumors to rest that it was a Brigantine restaurant, because he'd heard a lot of things. And so he wanted to express his support. So he's not here, so I wanted to do that in his behalf. So.
Right, Mr. Dish.
Yes. So thank you, Mayor, members of council. So Matt Morton with Brigantine Restaurants is here this evening, and the request that you have before you is the ability to approve a license and encroachment agreement to allow for the installation of effectively a sort of windscreen wall. We have sort of an illustrative drawing here that shows what that wall would look like. I have some pictures here in a second, so just try to capture this in your mind's eye for a moment. But one of the things that we were conscious of is making sure that we maintained a nice wide sidewalk. You know, Seacoast Avenue is constrained in a lot of areas with a really narrow sort of sidewalk. So this would maintain a minimum 6-foot clearance and allow for additional outdoor dining, which is one of the keystones of the Seacoast Drive area. It's manifest in lots of our plans. And this would allow for that to occur, and it really complements the overhead doors. So it's really going to be an open look and feel, and that material is a glass. And so here's kind of a collage of pictures. And so the left picture, you can see my bike, and that kind of notes the area where the wall would be. And then the tape measure there as we're going in a clockwise, so basically 12 o'clock, kind of shows where the 6-foot mark would be. And again, you can see how that would be transposed. Yeah, right. And then those are my shoes in the around the 2 o'clock location. This is actually a different spot across the street to kind of show that area is just a little over like 5.5 feet. But that's immediately to the south across the street, right, where there's the sort of promenade, sort of colonnade area. And that just shows the sort of the distance there. So if you were to walk there and feel, you can certainly walk side by side abreast with somebody else. Somebody could have a large stroller and still pass with ease. And so on the Brigantine side, that would actually be a little bit wider than it is immediately to the south. And so then the material is, again, very similar to what you see in the photo here, and like at the restaurant at C180. So that concludes the presentation. And again, this was sort of looked at with staff, with our Public Works Department, Building and Planning, and we would recommend that you support that.
Questions, comments?
I think it's a great idea to utilize that space. It makes sense. What's the plan for any additional landscaping or potted plants would be within those tables? I would imagine there'd be a few.
Yeah, maybe Matt can answer a little bit more in terms of what's inside there, but this illustrative drawing shows some of the sort of planters that would be located along the edge, sort of in line, parallel with the back of the curb, right in line with that wall. Those would be like sort of a raised concrete planter. And then again, maybe Matt would like to talk a little bit more about the look and feel.
For me, that's good. But if you want to come up and introduce yourself anyway, Matt.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate it. And please pass my thanks to Mr. Spriggs for his kind words confirming it is, in fact, a Brigantine coming, and there will be fish tacos. But just as Steve said, it's just cast in place concrete planters about like 30 inches high with succulent planting. Pretty standard stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Morton, there's
Yes.
been some questions about the concept, the dining concept. Can you fill us in a little bit on what you're at least initially thinking for the dining concept? While you're
If
here?
you're familiar with any of our other Brigantines, it's going to be the same, with the exception of it will all be, if you're familiar with the Coronado Brigantine, say there's a lounge side and a dining side. It's all going to be similar to our lounge side just because of the small footprint. It's the entire restaurant front and back of the house is 3,300 square feet, whereas the Coronado restaurant, again, it's one of our smaller Brigantines at about 6,000 square feet. So it's substantially smaller. But because we won't have the dining side, we are going to feature some of our dining room, more popular dining room items that don't ordinarily show up on what we call our oyster bar or lounge menu, swordfish, steak, things of that nature. But it'll be nice and wide open. Garage doors hopefully open every day, and good indoor-outdoor concept.
It's going to be sit down, order, serve.
Oh,
or
absolutely, full
not
service.
go
It just
through a
won't be
window?
hostess seating. No. It'll be full service. Yeah, absolutely, full service with full beer, wine, spirits bar.
Yeah, Mr. Ross.
Just one question.
Yes.
Is it going to have the same happy hour as the one in Coronado?
It will.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Mayor Pro Tem Bragg.
Thank you. I would like to add my congratulations and welcome to the community. I think it's going to be just a phenomenal addition to Seacoast Drive. I spent time with our assistant city manager, Dush. I actually went down to the site. I marched it off. I didn't have a tape measure, but I used my size 7 shoe. The necessity for the wall is very plain from a hospitality industry standpoint. So without the glass walls, that site is really not that hospitable to somebody dining outside. So I stood there and I tried to imagine that. I did question the height of the wall, the glass wall at 5.5 feet, and that was explained to me. I understand, I get it. In my mind, it's going to make somebody who's dining at this facility, they'll be separated from, the street a little bit more. So the fumes and the cars and the passing by. And I used to work on 5th Avenue in downtown. And there were many, and I'd walk by, and without that, you are very close to pedestrians. And I often thought, I wonder how many times somebody just reaches over and, maybe has a sip and grabs that taco or something.
Right.
So I'm pleased that you thought of this. I think it's just going to be a wonderful addition to Seacoast Drive. And it starts to spur one of the ideas or desires that this community has had, and that is more outdoor dining and that active lifestyle that we're trying to promote. So I'm just really looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you and your family for investing in the company, for investing in Imperial Beach. I've been kind of bragging about the quality of our private sector partners, from the Cohn family to your family and company and Ashes Ronnie. We have some really, and Sudbury, we have the cream of the crop in San Diego in terms of the business community. So people who do solid, great stuff and really understand how to run a great business, but also good value for the customers and really leave a great mark on our city. So really excited about it. I get that. I had a lot of questions about it, but I'm in that area all the time because I have an office across the street. And that's arguably the most wind open spot in the entire city. South wind, west wind, and north wind. There's no escape. Whereas everywhere else in Seacoast, especially if you're on the other side, facing east, you don't get that at all. You're wind protected. Right. So I get it, and I'm really appreciative of having a business of Brigantines caliber in Imperial Beach. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
So with that, is there a motion to approve in a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Spriggs absent.
Okay, thanks everyone. Adjourning the regular meeting, and we're gonna go back to